Get ready to embark on a thrilling journey through the sands of ancient Egypt. Our guest today is a master storyteller with a passion for unlocking the secrets of the past. Hailing from the mountains of Lehi, Utah, she now calls the city of Chicago her home. And let me tell you that her love for the Windy City's energy, diversity, and vibe infuses every page of her book. With a background in ancient history, including masters in the ancient history of the Mediterranean and the Near East, and a PhD in ancient Egyptian history from the University of Chicago, our guest author weaves intricate stories that transports readers to a time when pharaohs ruled and powerful secrets lay hidden beneath the desert sands. From her gripping middle grade adventures to her new novel with enchanting tales of power and intrigue in ancient Egypt, her stories have a way of pulling you in and never letting you go. Her first novels were middle grade tales about two siblings who were catapulted back into times to the court of Amarna, where danger lurks at every corner and magic is as real as the pyramid. But in her latest novel, Neferura, the Pharaoh's Daughter, she takes us on a journey through the tumultuous court of Kemet, where Princess Neferura navigates treacherous politics and dark betrayals to protect her people and preserve her legacy. I first noticed this book because of the gorgeous cover. Look at this. But I promise you that the story inside is just as amazing and it will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very last page. And that's why we are thrilled to have this brilliant authors behind these amazing stories with us today. Malayna Evans, welcome to our podcast.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here. This is so much fun.
Apart from what I've just Yes, we're thrilled. Apart from what I've just said, is there anything else that you could add to?
I mean, maybe I should admit that I have two naughty Frenchies because you never know when they're gonna like jump into the scene. Also, to less naughty kids. So I'm a single mom and I have a crazy household with dogs and kids.
That's what makes your head move, when everything is crazy. I feel like that's
keeping things buzzy.
Exactly. So with all our authors, we kind of like to start off with what got you started in writing.
Well, before I went to graduate school 112 years ago, I really thought I was going to grow up and be like a Margaret George or a Robert Graves. Somebody did these deep, profound books about the ancient world. So I kind of, for fun, went to get an MA in Greek and Roman history. And then I learned when I did that I had a kind of Eurocentric, probably, education. I thought sort of that's where it all started. And you study that and you're like, oh, wait, this started in Africa and the Near East. Okay, I'll go study that. So that kind of led to the educational route. And you get sucked into that world of academia and it kind of kills your creativity a little bit. It wasn't until actually my family was going through a hard time and my son was quite young. He was like 9. And just as sort of a mom tool, he and I started to write a book together just for fun, just to kind of create a little happy in our life. And I realized that laying in bed at night, thinking about my protagonist's problems was much happier, catastrophic thinking about my own problems. So it kind of just became a useful tool for me to sort of, I don't know, flip the switch a little bit, and sort of control where my thoughts went, just this creating stories in my head. My son eventually lost interest, but that book was my first book, Jagger Jones. And those kids are very based on my own 2 kids who are a lot older now. But yeah. So anyway, that's kind of how I started.
That's fun. I love the fact that you were writing with your son.
Yeah, that we would come up with plots over dinner. I mean, that was like a family project, that book. But I didn't really I think I was never really intentional about writing kids' books. It was sort of just a thing we did. And then once that was done, I backed off and thought, okay, what do I really like? Let's go back to the original idea. Maybe I need more Margaret George and Robert Graves in my life. So it kind of came full circle a little bit with Neferura.
I love that. But when you were in college, did you ever think you were going to like write a book, any kind of book, or was this writing with your son the first real venture?
Well, as an undergrad, no, I didn't think I would do any of the things I've done in life. When I was in grad school, yeah, I did think I want to go through all this so that one day I can do that. Yeah, I did have that in my mind.
I like that.
So were you wanting to have more of an academic type of book, more centered?
No, I just wanted to understand the culture so that I could write about it more authentically. I just really wanted to kind of put myself into, I never thought about like going to creative writing classes or something. I just really wanted to understand the world. And then I thought maybe if I understood the world, I could translate it a little bit for other people.
And that's one of the things when I was reading is because it's a different world. I mean, it's set in a completely different time, and the gods and learning about the culture, and that's what I really love about it. And so, and you were, as I was reading, able to translate it for a modern person who had basically no I never really studied Egyptian history, so I didn't know. Like, I knew like the pharaohs. I knew who had
Hatshepsut.
Hatshepsut.
I say Hatshepsut. Some people say Hatshepsut.
Oh wow! Like, just
You can go either way.
Names too.
That is a challenge. It's a challenge as a writer too, because they're real people. You can't change the names, and that itself is making it kind of a harder read for readers.
And they have a real history that's already set, so you have to work within the framework of their actual life as well. So that was pretty cool.
I also feel like, like sometimes we talk to writers who stop with their writing, like they'll write like 10,000 words and stop with their writing to do research. I feel like you withdrew all that. You just went straight to college, did all the research, and now you can sit down and write all the books. Like, I think that's time efficiency, like, as far as I'm concerned. Like, that's really cool.
Also a very good way to rack up extra debt, just for those of you who are in the market for that.
Well, some people take an MFA, you get a PhD in archaeology and Egyptology. That's okay, right?
I suppose so.
That's very cool. So when I was studying your bio, it said that you loved Chicago. So, like, tell us more about that. Like,
I do. Let's see, I moved here, oh my gosh, 93, I think. And when I moved, I just kind of wanted to try a different city. I'm from Utah, and I kind of wanted to try a different kind of environment. And I thought I would like move around. I was like, let's go to Chicago, and then I'll go to Seattle. And then, like, I imagined that I was going to kind of be a rover. But I don't know. I just loved Chicago. It kind of took for me. I fit here in a way that I didn't ever quite feel like I fit in Utah. So sometimes you got to go out and find your tribe a little bit.
No, I completely agree with you. So let's go back to your books. Let's do when you wrote the book with your son, and now you've got a book in front of you. So are you getting critique partners? Are you getting beta readers? Are you writing a query? What's going on?
Right. So I think that I think there's nothing more important than having people that speak to your work. And the one thing about the Kidlit community, you're really in community with those people. Like, everybody is like so sweet to everybody, especially like the middle grade stuff. SCBWI is such a robust association. It's so easy to make connections. So it was very easy to kind of find critique partners and stuff. And I'm still sort of not 100% set on that. Like, all my writer friends are like kid writers. So it's a little bit more challenging, but on the bright side, I have an editor. You can't just call her and chit chat about everything. But so it's nice to sort of have somebody that's a professional also to kind of give you, well, maybe that's not the right book for now, or maybe that's not the right idea for this moment. And, have you thought about this? So she kind of pushes me in different ways. And that's also incredibly valuable. And I feel lucky to kind of have that feedback.
No, definitely. I think that we all need somebody to tell us when we're going, because it's so close to us, right? Like, you can't see the forest for the trees at one point.
Yeah,
so
you can.
Thank you, Angie, for being the best. So, so you had some critique partners read your story, and then you launched yourself into the world out there with querying for an agent.
Yes, before my middle grade books, I did. I've had the same agents. The agent I got then is still with me.
Love
And
it.
I kind of just did it the way everybody does it, query tracker, usual stuff.
Yeah.
I think the one thing is that I just had some little rule for myself, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It was either 5 or 10 queries a week. Like, I was like, this is going to take a long time, and I'm going to settle in, and I'm just going to kick these things out. And I couldn't find a 5th or 10th, whatever my number was. I was kind of running out of, I just couldn't find the perfect person, and I was in a hurry, and I needed to like tick that off my to-do list for the week. So I sent it to my current agent, not thinking she was actually a good fit. What I could not have predicted is she had a Jagger in her life. So, it kind of caught her attention from the jump, because that was my protagonist's name. So anyway, one thing led to another, and I guess I tell this story because you never know, sometimes it's better just to not do too much analysis and just move a little bit, because you don't always know what you don't know.
So how did you learn to write the query letter?
I think probably SCBWI, somehow through them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wrote one and taught and shared it with some of my writer friends until I thought it was okay enough.
And as you were querying, were you getting feedback on the query letter and able to like revise it as you went along?
Yeah, I mean, that actually went fairly quick for me. And I don't think I ever revised my query letter, actually.
Okay, nice.
I think I got some requests for manuscripts, some no's, some let's see more, and then Liza and I got together, and that was that. And she's been just a complete, it's nice to not have to think about that.
Yeah.
So knock on wood, because she'll don't be.
No, that's
It's
it's very good.
It's also great that she represents you with your middle grade as well as
Yeah.
your adult books. So
Right.
Excellent.
She really did feel like I should probably pick a lane. She was like, like, decide what you really want to do and let's focus on that. So
It's so hard to do though, like as creatives, like you want to be a little bit all over the place. So
well, and
It's
sometimes
so-
you don't know where your lane quite is. You have to
Is,
kind of
right.
explore that to see, okay, is my voice middle grade? And if you love middle grade and you love writing adult, being able to switch back and forth is nice.
right. I also think sometimes when you're writing, like if you're editing a book and writing a different book, it's nice to have them be very different because it kind of, when you go back to edit, it feels like you have fresher eyes.
Yeah.
very true. I love your approach to the query letter because I feel like that detaches you from the personal attack, like they're not saying no to you because you as a person are bad. It's because it just doesn't fit. And the fact that you were just doing 5, 5 or 10, 10,
Right.
it's just
Right.
like, this is a job. This is a job. This is a job. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
fantastic. Good advice.
Do this if you're not going to be, if you are not comfortable with rejection 99% of the time,
That's
this
true.
is a hard path.
Yeah.
And it can be so killing at times. So,
Heart-wrenching.
very much so. So when you were editing your story, did you, like when you first finished writing it, did you let it sit for a while and then go back and start editing, or did you?
When I wrote Nefrura, it sat, my agent had read it and sort of, we went through some changes.
Okay.
And then we actually sat on it for quite a while because COVID came out. And so then I think we had fresh eyes and we went back and edited it again. So yeah. And then of course we sold it. And then there were like 1 million more rounds of edit. I can't even tell you how many rounds of edit that book went through. It went through a lot of edit.
I want to talk about that book so bad, but I also want to talk about your
Okay.
MG books because you wrote 3 of them, right? So how did that happen? So you get a yes from a publication house, and then
I sold it as free from the jump.
and then do you have are they written? Do you have stories for them? Where do those?
No, but I sort of had an idea that Jagger's story could go on. And I kind of wanted to tell a story from the sisters. In the first book, it's about Jagger Jones and he has a little sister, Aria Jones. And I kind of wanted to flip the script and tell from her point of view also.
Nice.
And the third book is from an Egyptian character they meet along the way, or kind of rotates points of views. So yeah, I didn't really know how the whole trilogy came together, but I did realize there was, I left it with an opportunity to go back. And then as soon as I sold it, I knew there were 2 more. So kind of jumped in and started figuring.
Okay, then let's dive into this book. I am so happy to. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna hold it right. Okay, so many questions. How do you go from MG to adult, and where does this idea come from?
Well, MG to adult was very intentional. It was like, okay, who do I really want to be when I grow up? I know you're thinking it's a little late to ask, but still, here we are.
I'm a writer.
Adulting is hard. So that was like, what do I really want to put out into the world? And I, as I said, even years ago in graduate school, kind of thought this would be great. I never sat down and thought, which strong woman do I want to write about? Because you would never come up with Nefrura if you sort of started from that point of view. She just sort of always lived in my head as a really interesting character whose story is completely unknown. There's so many Egyptians we know a lot about, and that you could scaffold a whole story on and then fill in the blank. Nefrura is not that person. We know who her mother is. She's the only child of this incredibly successful female pharaoh, which in itself seems fraught. She also has a tutor who is particularly famous for being kind of innovative. He has kind of unusual statues, and his most common statues are these statues of him with Nefrura on his lap. And it's probably pure propaganda. He's just showing off his kind of proximity to royalty to kind of boost himself. But ancient Egyptian imagery is kind of static and it's a little cold. And so when you get these more intimate pictures like these kind of things that suggest this sort of warm relationship, even if it is propaganda, kind of it moves me a little bit more. So maybe those are the two things that made me super interested in her. Yeah. So I was just kind of interested in thinking like, what might her life have been like when that's your mother?
I love that. Everything that you've just told us repeats in the book. So congratulations for that, because that's exactly how I felt after reading the book. So yeah, perfect. You get this idea, and now are you a plotter or are you a pantser? Do you sit down and start writing? What do
I
you-
just started writing. And in fact, when I first wrote it, again, let's remember wannabe Margaret George, Robert Graves, both of them who write like memoir style diaries, right? I
Mhm.
first wrote it as a diary. So
Oh,
it was
wow.
like her writing in her diary. And that felt young. And the book still reads quite young.
Yeah.
It is an adult novel, but it's a very coming of age story.
Mhm.
If new adult was a thing, maybe it would be new adult. No.
As I know, new adult did not last.
Which is a shame.
But this would fit if it did. I like reading stories that kind of are young, so that doesn't bother me. But yeah, so I originally just no plot, no idea where I was going, full on pantser, and wrote it as a diary. And then I was like, well, that didn't work. So then I rewrote it as a memoir, which kind of from a craft perspective is a little different.
Yes.
So I was like, well, that didn't work. And that might be about when I got the agent involved and was like, what should I be doing here?
Oh, right.
So I used my help line and then just wrote it kind of in a more traditional.
And so
But
for
still
that
kind of
story,
fifth
did you
person.
plot out time? Like, but
I,
you pretty
I
much had
very
those.
quickly, I sort of had an idea that of who the characters were. I kind of had an idea of how I wanted to portray Hatshepsut, knowing that some people would not like that. An idea of sort of whether I wanted to make Senenmut a good guy or a bad guy. Same with Tutmos III, and who her like little sidekick would be, that she would have a close friend that came from a different background. So I sort of had these characters in mind. And I had a general sense of where I thought it would end.
Right.
In real life, we know nothing about Neferura. She might not have lived to the age she is in this book. So you can't like, make her pharaoh next or something, right? There are
Mhm.
limitations in what you can do.
Yeah.
So I had an idea in my head about where she might land, although that kind of evolved a little bit, but not that much.
When reading her history and then knowing that the book is there and then trying to figure out, okay, where did you go with it in the story is like that's what makes it really intriguing as well, because it's like, because there are many different ways to tell the story.
There are a lot of theories about her, and none of
Mhm.
them have a lot of evidence. It's just like, well, we have this one piece of evidence where her name isn't a hieroglyph. Oh, she wanted to be pharaoh. Like,
Mhm.
there's so many different theories, and you have scholars that will kind of propose those theories in that scholarly, oh, we don't know for sure, but maybe.
Well, and that, and like you were that she had well, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but just instead of reading it and I'm thinking, oh, okay, so did she or did she not? Like it's in my head.
Oh, that's the best part of it.
That's the
Some
best
of
part.
what she does is what you would expect her to do, but we have no proof she did. So some of it is like, this is what should have happened in a normal, this is what would have been normal.
Or even when
We
she
don't really know.
died, like I was just reading that they found a tomb, but no body, so they think the tomb was occupied. They're not sure she died before her mother or after.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
there's just so much you could use for, I mean, that. And so I'm still only a few chapters in, so this is my weekend read, y'all. But that's one of the things that just makes it so much, I mean, it's so intriguing in this way, because I can't wait to find out what you do with it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to dive a little deeper because I have read the book, but like now that you've explained that you did it as a diary first and you did it as a memoir, like some of the best part of this book are all the notes that they send, like the notes that everybody, sorry, Angie, but there's lots of notes that everybody sends, and those are so cool. Like I love that, like all the letters that they're writing to each other to say like this is happening and that's happening, and all the thinking that Neferura goes through with that. But I loved in this book the characterization. Neferura starts out as a very naive,
Yeah.
gullible,
Yeah.
like, and you would think, like living with a mother that's like that, like that she would, but no. And like throughout the book, her evolution is like fantastic. So what, like, how did you think that through? Like, how did that come about?
Listen, obviously huge fan of ancient Egyptian culture. Like that's
Yeah.
sort of a thing. But I do think we don't generally judge cultures by the cool buildings they left behind, right? We judge them by how many people had healthcare. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is true.
We don't do that with ancient cultures. I would not want to be an ancient Egyptian. I mean, it was a very harsh authoritarian regime where 99% of the people were sort of poor worker bees who served the 1%. I mean, so I did want to kind of nod to the kind of propaganda, the role of propaganda in the culture. And of course, Neferua benefits from all that propaganda, right? She's not a sad story for her.
No.
But so there were two things. One was just to kind of show that propaganda ultimately is a lie. So even though she benefited, she doesn't want to be lied to by her mom either. So I kind of built that in. That was one influence. And then the other influence was sort of just the role of being a woman, right? They may have been the most powerful people in ancient Egypt, Hatshepsut and Neferua, but they were still women and they still had limitations because of that. Neferua had no control over her own body. And, if you don't have bodily autonomy, it's not clear, how much power you really have.
Absolutely.
So I kind of wanted to think about that as well.
And the fact that her mother became the pharaoh,
Yeah.
but she was sharing it with a child,
right?
Because he was a male.
But it was actually not that uncommon for women to rule as queen regents. We have a lot of queen regents. They just don't usually take the step of saying, "Yeah, I think I'll just share. I'll just be a pharaoh, little boy, step aside."
I love it.
Which I loved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then without going into spoiler region, like how did you come up with all the scorpions? Like, where does that come in? Because that is so cool.
Again, when I thought, when I started to write, I thought I was going to write a book about friendship.
Okay.
I really was thinking a lot about sort of the role friends have played in my life, and not just like the emotional comfort of good friends, but sort of the ways they practically enhance your life. You know what I mean? Like there's all these ways your life gets advanced by the relationships you build.
Absolutely.
So I was thinking about sort of what might her resources be, and what if her resources were my resources, right? That they were like good friends.
Yep.
And in my life, I swear every time I'm ever stuck, it's always a woman who just comes along and is like, Malayna, do that. So I wanted to give her that. And acknowledging the very patriarchal environment, I wanted to kind of systematize that a little bit. So that's kind of where the idea of this, why I also think wise women in ancient Egypt are fascinating. Tattoos in ancient Egypt have a really interesting history. There's a lot of images, tomb scenes and stuff of tattooed women, which an early generation of Egyptologists, read mostly men, sort of thought they were like loose women and stuff. Like they use all these kind of terrible ways to describe these women with tattoos, because in their social context, right, a woman with a tattoo was kind of trashy to them. I have tattoos. I think,
Yeah.
how I see it. More recently, scholars have thought, well, maybe it's a religious, communion, or it could mean all sorts of things, but it probably isn't that. So I also kind of wanted to give the tattooed girls a little bit of a different frame and give them a little power.
Love that. It was a great idea. Like I absolutely love the idea that like from tattoos, you can like they can spot each other and whatever. Like, I mean, that was, yeah, I loved it. There's a lot to love about this book. And it reminds me, like, I don't know if you're going to like this or not, but it kind of reminds me like of a Game of Thrones kind of things, like, I mean, at that level of like, like we want this so bad, so bad, so bad. So
well, who would not like that?
It's true, because like like he will, like, I mean, Tutmos will do basically anything to get where he is, and so will Hatshepsut.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, she wants to keep it, he wants it. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, what's not to love about that, and
Yeah.
and poor Neferua is stuck in the middle, literally.
Yeah.
So no, that was, and there are so many scenes, again, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to go into detail, but there are so many scenes where you don't want to turn the page because you know what's about to happen, and you're like, no, 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 and you turn the page and you read it like, oh no. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad story, I'm saying that's what needed to happen for the story to
Right.
happen, but it's just like, no.
So is it like a cliffhanger? Like, because we torture each other by ending the chapter on a cliffhanger, and so that we have to make the other person wait until the next chapter is written before she can read it.
My chapters break up kind of in odd ways, actually, in this book, I think. So sometimes, but not often.
It's just because the way that something happens, it just has to go that way, and you're just like, no, with all my heart, no, I don't want this to happen, and then you turn the page like, oh, it had to happen, but
Yeah, that's funny. Oh my
no,
God.
but it's so good, and that's what makes the books so good, because Neferua, like you were saying, doesn't have control over her body.
Right.
And that's what makes her grow up, really, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
everything
Right.
that happens to her. And
Yeah.
would you pronounce it Hathor? Is that her name?
Yes. So Hathor, as I was kind of working on this, I read about a mummy discovered in Darul Medina, which is a village where actually the village is in the book too, of this woman that was covered in tattoos. Well, let me say the tattoos in my books kind of are described as if, I don't know, the tattoo artist was like on Tattoo Wars. That is not what Egyptian tattoos look like, but they have them. And there's a mummy from Darul Medina who is covered in tattoos, and they're all kind of related to the worship of Hathor. And so that mummy inspired Hathor's character.
It was fantastic. Even when you go into, because Hathor is wise woman, and she's got all the potions and everything, like all the things that you describe. Like, I mean, your book is so atmospheric. Like, you enter it, and every time that you go into the book, you're in Egypt. Like, it's as simple as that, like you turn a page and it's like, oh, there I am again. Great story, and I'm in Egypt full on. Like, even your description of the heat and the sun and everything, like it's, like when you say the pharaoh is like wiping her brow because like it's so hot, it makes you hot, like you're right there with her. So it was fantastic. I absolutely,
Thank you so
but I love it.
thank you. That makes me feel good. I appreciate that.
No,
You guys know it's just a lot of work to get these things into the world. And so you want it to land with some people. It's not going to land with everybody, but you really do want it to connect with some people. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh no, and like I was telling you before we started recording, like as a fan of Pauline Gedge, like, I mean, this is right up there with it. Like, I mean, the stories are great, and I absolutely love the fact that everything you've described to us right now is like it's true. You know what I mean? Like, this is all based on actual fact, and that makes, I don't know, I mean, that makes the story even better to me. Like when it's a historical and there's like it's based in fact, like that's fantastic.
Then you come out of it thinking you learn more. I mean, you get to know the culture a little bit better, and
I love it when you could trick people into learning something.
Right?
Spoken like a true professor.
Yep.
Are you doing more about this? Like, well, not about this maybe, but like, are you writing more?
Yes, I am. I am in, when I draft, I get like obsessed. I sort of just live in the story, and I'm a pretty fast writer. So my first drafts tend to be like, I'm all about it all day, every day, for every second I can spare until I get to the end. So I am in that zone right now. Yes. And I was kind of working on sort of an ISIS retelling, but it's kind of transitioned into a story of a human woman from the same village I mentioned, kind of a old-fashioned whodunit murder mystery influenced by the Isis Osiris mythology. We'll see if that makes it to the world, but that's my current obsession.
Yeah, no, we are going to send that up to the universe like that. Let that be.
It has also forced me for the first time to like be a little bit of a plotter, which is hard for a pantser, but you can't write a whodunit without
knowing
a lot of information about what's everybody's secret, who really did it, what are the clues, so I've had to plot a lot out, and that
you're just perpetuating the problem between me and Angie. I'm the plotter, she's a pantser, and every once in a while there's some plotting pantsing going on. So
it's a little plantsing.
That's what I'm doing. I'm plantsing in its first.
I think it's the best of both worlds, actually, because you get to like right at the top, from the top of your head, but at the same time you kind of know where you're going. Like, it
definitely helps to kind of know where you're going when you want to pants.
Right.
Otherwise you're in this loop of, okay, I don't know where I'm going anymore, and I kind of. At least that's
like, I mean, I've said it before, and it. Like, I mean, to me, it's fascinating that Angie sits down, and you now sit down at the computer and just don't know what you're going to write that day. Like, to me, that's like fascinating. So
I never do that because I write the story in my head like a movie scene 100 times before I sit down to write it. Like, I lay in bed all night and I'm like, or he says this or he says this. It's never really what you imagine, but I know when I sit down. I can't remember who said it, but one of my favorite quotes about writing is, and I'm not only going to not know who to attribute to, but exactly the quote, but you'll get the idea. Writing is like driving in the fog. You can only see a few feet ahead of you, but you can go the whole distance that way. So that's true. That's how I feel. I'm like, I can see what happens today. And then when I go to bed tonight, I'll figure out what happens tomorrow.
That's the way I do it as well. Like, before I even start writing, I have it pretty much written in my head, like right before bed. And then sometimes I'll lean over and I'll grab a notebook and make little notes before I go to sleep so I don't forget it. But yeah, I love that. Finally, I have a pet stuff.
Love it. So I know that you've traveled pretty extensively. Like, have any of your travels gone into your books, or have you ever thought of writing that kind of book too?
Well, do you guys want me to tell you the one, you want me to tell you the one big mistake I'm aware of Nefru, or do you guys want to know my secret? Don't tell anybody though, okay?
Okay, no, it'll keep between the three of us.
Yeah.
So once I was on a Nile cruise, and I remember sitting on this boat and watching a little boy play with a water buffalo and just thinking this could have been like any time. Like it's like timeless, this timeless moment. And so there's a scene in the book where she is on the Nile and she is watching a boy play with a water buffalo. And it wasn't literally until the book was printed that I was like, water buffalo? There were in fact no water buffalo at this period. In ancient Egypt, I'm sure they existed somewhere else. So that was my big anachronism that I know of.
It's okay. It's just the three of us, so nobody
Because it
will
was
know.
it was just like I instead of like creating Nefrura's moment, I was just sort of putting my moment.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it because I didn't know any better, and I like that scene, so it's all good. We're fine.
I like the fact that you were able to share that with us.
That's
Just
right.
us.
I wish I would have caught that a little bit earlier, but it's okay. As long as no one that you two knows.
I also think that because you have a PhD in the subject, maybe you know a little bit more than the average reader of your book, so you will be okay.
I might have some Egyptologists are going to be mad over my head tips trail already, so they're probably not too worried about the water buffalo.
So I'm going to ask you a question that we ask all our authors.
Okay.
What is the one thing that you've done so far that you feel helped your career the most?
I think the one thing I've done so far is frame in my mind criticism as a gift. When people criticize you, that means they have taken time with your art. They took time out of their busy schedule, sat down, sat with your work, thought about it, and then took the time to share it with you. And so that can hurt. Obviously, criticism is painful, but it's not like I take all criticism, because sometimes it's like, okay, that I get it, but not my, that's not my thing. But overall, I just try to kind of frame that as really positive and invite sort of people to give me feedback. And so I can receive it in a way that is reflective about the feedback and not too emotional and not too personal. I can be like, okay, would that make the work better? Does that sort of resonate with me? How could I incorporate that? Or do I just think that not my cup of tea? So I would say that is like the one thing that has let me continue to improve as I've written.
So does that mean that you read the comments or you don't read the comment?
I say all this to say I am like a really thick-skinned person, but when and I don't recall this with Jagger Jones, but when Nefrura came out and there started to be reviews, like the first few reviews, what's weird? Those really nice 3-star reviews confuse me. You're like, this book was so much fun, I'm going to give it 3 stars. You're like, oh, I don't know if that the same way you do, but thanks. So the first couple reviews were like really thoughtful, totally valid 3-star reviews. And I did not sleep for a week. So I definitely was surprised by how it hit me. But now I've stopped reading. I mean, I do sometimes read them. I kind of scan some, but I don't, originally I was sort of obsessing about them, but now I've sort of backed off and been like, okay, it's fine.
It's weird because sometimes you see, rather you have a bunch of 5-star reviews, and then you have the 3 stars, and then you have the 1 star.
Yeah.
But the ones that stand out in your mind aren't the 5s. It's the bad.
Yeah,
where
I know.
Even though it's weird how that is, where you just focus on the negative sometimes.
Do you want my tip for that?
Yes.
Here's what I did that made me kind of stop doing that. I started to look at reviews when I was still looking. I thought about it like, what would I amplify on social media? I'm not like super social media-ish, but if I were one of those people that posted, and I do a little bit, what are the ones I would cut and quote? And I kept a Word doc where I cut and quoted things that I would put, and some of them I did put on social media. But then it's like when you looked at your reviews, you were looking for those gems. You were looking for things like, the kind of the nice things that, like Christy said, like, the kind things. And you were like intentional about finding those gems, and then the act of kind of cut and pasting them, so you had a document with just the nice things. That sort of, again, reframed me to think a little bit more about the positive and not be so focused on the negative.
I love that.
I do
That's
too.
a great idea. Yeah.
It's kind of like your own personal diary of good things said about you on a bad day. That would really, really work.
Yeah, open it up, and it's like you're feeling those negative thoughts, just open it up and say, It's here.
Yep.
This is how people really see me too.
Absolutely. So how fast of a writer are you? You said that you draft your drafts pretty quickly. So are you talking like 2,000 to 3,000 words a day? Are you the 500?
I never look at words. I think about it in terms of scenes. I literally don't know how many words I write a day. But I can write a scene in a day. So maybe 3 months. I mean, it will take me.
Good.
But I've been kind of working on for about 2 weeks, a lot, and I'm maybe 40 pages in. So I think that's pretty fast.
Do you edit as you write? So do you write a scene and then edit it before you move forward?
A little bit. In order to sink back into the story, I always reread what I just wrote. And as I reread, I will edit. So I know not to edit a ton because I know when I get to the end, because I'm a pantser, you're going to change, go back and change so much. So to wordsmith, spend a ton of time wordsmithing doesn't make a ton of sense. But then also because I'm part pantser, things will change. And then you'll be like, where's all the places what are all the things that need to change in order for this idea to make sense now as it's evolved? So sometimes I will do that as I'm going. Yes. So I do edit a little bit as I write.
That makes sense. And now, is there a book that you had started and is sitting in a drawer somewhere that no one will ever see? Or yeah.
A few.
No, those are good because we love those because we feel like there's not one book that you write that is wasted, like you learned something from those and nobody will ever see them, but that doesn't mean, is there one now that you can think of that you might go back?
Well, this goddess book I was just writing, I actually really loved it. And it ends up being sort of more backstory for this book and kind of given me the way the characters might interact and stuff, but I didn't intend that. And it's a little hard for me to walk away from that because I loved it. But I once wrote a YA dystopian book. I have one middle grade book I love. I have another kind of princess book I've worked on. So sometimes I just write for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, what might we try to put into the world?
Yep.
So I'm hoping the one I'm working on right now is something I will put into the world. We'll see.
Very cool.
So are you under contract with another book right now? So
just
one.
So you can do whatever you want.
That's right.
The publisher of Nefru has kind of given me some feedback on, what they might be more open to. So I am sort of trying to align with.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why not? Yeah, absolutely.
I got really lucky in the publisher. I don't think I could have a better experience. So
well, that cover alone is worth its weight in gold.
Right.
So
you put a lot of thought into that.
Last question before we move on to the speed round part of this is, what's easier for you though? Is it the drafting or is it the editing? Or which one do you like best?
Oh, the drafting for sure. I find drafting super fun. I love the kind of obsession, like live in this world of these other people. Editing, I used to really not like editing. I've learned to like it more. But no, definitely the drafting is the fun part for me.
I love it. You can meet as many authors as you want. Like you always get the surprising answer and good for you. I think that's great. Everybody usually says like, oh, the drafting is so hard, but no, I love your answer because it's so true. When you're drafting and you're in that world, there's nothing like it. And on a good day, when you write a good scene,
I also always listen, we all struggle with the imposter syndrome. When I am in drafting mode, I always think I'm a genius. I'm like, and it's not till later I go back and look at it and be like, oh, so not a genius.
Malayna, you're great. I love it.
Well, at least you enjoy your own work. That's
right.
Yeah, exactly.
We all do. Like there are days, admit it, Angie, there are days where you're telling yourself, I am a genius. Nobody has ever written a better scene. I've done that.
Like, I'm so funny. I'm just so funny.
I'm just so funny. That's right. That happens too. But Malayna, thank you so much for answering all our questions and going through your whole process and everything. We absolutely love the time that we spent with you. And now we're going to go into a speed round where people are going to get to know you a little bit better with like questions, yes or no answers, paragraph answers, whatever you feel like saying is fine with us. Are you ready?
I am ready. Let's do it.
All right. What's your favorite thing about living in Chicago?
Just the vibe, the people, the kind of diversity, there's everything in Chicago. I love the color and the smells and the flavor. And, it's just, I'm from a very homogenous environment, and sort of be here where, you can go to all these different little villages with different ethnic communities that have their food and their colors and the smells and the whole thing. I love that about Chicago.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Do you listen to music as you write?
No.
Either, because then I'm singing the song and it doesn't.
Although Nefru does have a playlist.
It does.
Ancient Egyptian tunes. And oddly, I just posted it on Instagram. So
I am so going to go look for that. Absolutely. 100%. Is the glass half full or half empty?
Half full.
Love that. Who's someone, okay, it can be alive or dead, real or imagined, that you would love to meet?
Oh, so many people come to mind. I mean, I would meet Hatshepsut. That's somebody I would love to meet. I'd like to know what she thought she was up to.
That would be so good. Can you imagine the conversations that you could
Yeah.
have about
Yeah.
everything? Like just absolutely everything. That would be so cool.
Mhm.
What's something you don't mind spending a little extra money on?
Vacation.
Good answer. Do
Can
you?
I just expand on that and say, I
Yeah.
feel like the best thing I've been able to give my kids is to realize other people live differently. Like everybody's not like us. There's lots of places to be, lots of ways to be in the world. And also, you know, you don't have it that bad. So
I 100% agree with you. When you visit other countries is when you realize that
yeah,
it's not bad here. Yeah.
you see your context more clearly when you see other people's context. And so to kind of take my kids out into the world a little bit on occasion when I can is the thing that I will spend money I shouldn't on.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. Do you fix it yourself or call the expert?
Oh, expert.
That's not even a choice, right?
I'm like, no.
Okay, next question. Would you rather have unlimited money or unlimited time?
Time.
Which part of the day do you like the best?
Night. Evening.
Very cool. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a foodie would you say you are?
Oh, 8.5.
Ah,
I mean,
very
I'm in
nice.
Chicago. We're all kind of food.
Yeah, like do you like spices and like Italian and like go everywhere?
I like experiences. So like, you know, I will go to I will also on occasion spend a little too much to just go to some kind of, unique restaurant experience.
Makes
But
it
also we have a
okay.
lot of little hole in the walls that are just amazing here. So
Yeah, sometimes you don't even have to spend a lot of money and it's like the best food you've ever had. So
Uh-huh.
it's really good. And the very last question, which is always, so analytical, but do you ever eat cereal straight out of the box?
oh yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for answering those questions. We really appreciate it.
Up next is Malayna Evans, back cover trailer.
I am Malayna Evans, author of Nefrura, the Pharaoh's Daughter. Nefrura is princess and high priestess of Kemet. She knows her duty is to her people. When your mother is great pharaoh, it's hard to forget. But Nefrura's unique position at court comes with high stakes for her country, especially when she's forced to serve her vile half-brother, a man destined to stop Nefrura's potential rise. Peace, it seems, never lasts for a woman who wield power in the open, especially when they cross a vengeful man. When Nefrura overhears Tutmosis' plot to end her mother's rule, she knows he must be stopped, no matter the cost. The discovery of a mysterious tattooed wise woman and her shadowy network of spies offers an uneasy alliance. But the wise woman wields more power than Nefrura knew possible, power with the potential to rival her own. Nefrura must decide where her loyalties lie and how much she's willing to sacrifice to protect the people she loves before everything crumbles at the hands of a tyrant.
Next up, we're going to have Malayna tell us a little bit about where you can find her on the internet.
You can find me at MalaynaEvans.com. My name is hard to spell. It's Malayna. And you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram, which are the kind of the social media pages. The other thing I do is I do a newsletter where I often give away books and stuff. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we just want to thank you for joining us today. And everyone, please, if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when a video is coming out. And we just want to thank Malayna Evans again for coming on the show. Hurry up and click on one of the boxes on the screen so you can watch our next video or go to a playlist.